I've never been secretive about my enjoyment of Kevin Smith's work, although I think so far I've only talked about Tusk. If people do want me to talk about more, please let me know in the comments. I mean, maybe not all of them, but I will certainly talk about quite a few because I do enjoy them. But why am I talking about Dogma? Well, to paraphrase Kevin himself, the work about God was held, or the rights to that were held by the literal devil. So let's talk about Dogma, and I'll explain that in a minute. This was written, directed by and starred Kevin Smith, and normally I'd talk about more cast here, but there are so many good performers that I'm not just going to choose 3 or 4. I'm going to talk about quite a few as we go along. So yes, the rights were held by the Weinsteins personally, not just the company. And after the whole Harvey situation, I hope I don't need to explain that because I'm not going to. Look it up yourself if you really want to. Bob was approached, the brother, and the offer wasn't good enough. Fortunately, very recently, another company went, well, we'll buy it. And they went, okay, fine. And a re-release was done as of yesterday of this going live. So that was June the 5th, theatrically, so more people can enjoy it. Because this deal was done before streaming, it basically meant that once all the VHSs, if they were still around, yeah, they would have been around then, I'm sure. So when you're that old, you can't remember what's obsolete by certain dates. And DVDs, that kind of stuff, once they were out of print, that was it. You could not legitimately watch it unless you found it in a Goodwill or charity shop. So I'm really happy, and I do hope this new deal includes streaming. More people do need to see this, because this isn't an attack on religion. I know some people will probably think that because they just don't want to read the disclaimer at the start. I mean, it's an attack on platypi. Not going to let that one stand. But this isn't about hatred of religion. I feel a sort of kinship with Kevin Smith. Whilst I wasn't raised Catholic in the home, I went to a Catholic primary school. So I've been around all the ritual, the contradictions in the Bible, all that kind of stuff. And I feel that this is the work of one man questioning not only the bits of religion that have never made sense to him, but also, can he hold these beliefs and still call himself a Catholic or a Christian or whatever? Or is the questioning of it sort of inherently a rejection of it? And we're now both members of the ULC, so I guess maybe it is. But one of the things I do appreciate, and like I said at the start, there's so much great cast here. Right from the start, we have George Carlin, you can't say devout atheist, that seems wrong, doesn't it? But a committed atheist playing a cardinal. I mean, yes, it is, for this rebranding everything like that, which is very silly, and I think getting someone who was actually Catholic or Christian would have been difficult. But, it just shows how much people believed in the material. He was like, yeah, I get it. I want to be part of this. And the fact that this Buddy Christ that's unveiled is still known today, again, by people who probably don't know the film because it's out of print, says a lot. It says a lot about the enduring qualities of this film. But I can't really go much further without talking about our main male leads, unless you count Jay and Bob, who I'd argue are kind of male leads as well, but the ones people would probably stereotypically think of as the male leads, and that's Ben Affleck and Matt Damon as Bartleby and Loki, respectively. These are clear friends who love working together. They have such good screen chemistry, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's been some riffing and ad-libbing that they've just kind of worked with each other and let happen. They feel, from what I've seen here, from what I've seen in other performances, from what I've heard about them, they're very giving and an actor's actor in a lot of ways. And they seem decent people as well, which is always a positive. And I love how the dynamic of the relationship changes throughout the film with them. We have Loki as the fire and brimstone, kill everyone, they're not worth it. Bartleby being like, well, maybe not. Even way back when he was exiled, it was, maybe don't do that. But then there's a pivot point where all of a sudden he's like, do you know what? All this pent-up aggression, all this frustration, this feeling very slighted, to put it very mildly, comes out. And then Loki's the temperance one. Like, hell, hold on, maybe not so much. And I think that only works because these are such good performers who can do that flip convincingly. Another great performer who has worked with Kevin Smith quite a lot as well is Jason Lee. Now, in a couple of weeks' time, because I record stuff in weird orders and never on the schedule, I have got a video planned for The Residents, which he was also in. I don't think I talked about him in that video, so this is like a retroactive for me, but prospective for you. Praise for Jason Lee. I think he's great in this. He was great in that. Azrael is one of those characters who you love to hate, and Jason Lee does it really, really well. But I think I've talked a bit about actors and the general thing of the film. I do want to talk about the music, because when I was watching it, I was like, just something tickled my brain. And I looked up the composer. Now, if you're a fan of the Lord of the Rings films, you know Howard Shore's work pretty well, probably. If you're a fan of this film, you also know Howard Shore's work quite well. And now I know that, I could hear certain, like, maybe Rohan-y bits, maybe Fellowship-y bits, you know, the Shire bits, all that kind of stuff. I could hear some of these bits coming in, because this was a similar time. So it was very much in his head, so I think there's some crossover, which I'm fine with it. I'm fine with that. I enjoy it. So going back to the actual visuals, Linda Fiorentino as Bethany is so good, and I did learn that I was a fan of The X-Files when I was younger, so was Kevin Smith, and he approached Gillian Anderson, who apparently hated it. Now, I love Gillian Anderson as much as the next guy, but I can't see her as Bethany. Linda Fiorentino is Bethany, absolutely, and it isn't because I've seen it so many times. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, they would be a good X, Y, or Z character. I just can't see anyone else in the role. But I do feel Bethany is a sort of gender-swap self-insert for Kevin, if what I said earlier is true. If this was out of his own questioning, the fact that Bethany still goes to church, she still considers herself Catholic, but works at a Planned Parenthood kind of place, and, you know, feels like a lot of people, this crisis of faith, because she was told she couldn't have children, and her husband left her because he wanted someone who could have children. That happens to so many people. Like, so many things happen to religious people, and always the response is something along the lines of, God has a plan, and he sends these things to test us. I'm sorry, I come to your church every week, I do my tithes, I do all this, I've been confirmed, I have communion. That's not good enough for you? You need to test me? I can understand that entirely, and it's good that we have a character like this who has this questioning but still tries to maintain the faith. Again, I think this is very much what probably Kevin was doing. And then we get the introduction of Alan Rickman, a consummate professional, and his range in this is beautiful. I love the fact that he's very silly, he's very fun, he's very serious, but later in the film, when Bethany understands, you know, the whole situation, that she's the last Scion, etc., he comes to her in a wonderful shot, which is behind me now. This whole reason I had it, it's just such a beautifully framed shot. But he's there like, well, I had to tell a similar thing to a 12-year-old boy once. He didn't take it well either. And if I could have not had to do that, if I could have taken that all away, I would have done. I know he says I sympathise, but I feel very strong empathy, which is very different from him in that scene. Like, he's like, I get it. This is hard to deal with. No one should have to have this responsibility suddenly thrust upon them, but sorry, it's as believable as every other part of his performance. And as a quick sidebar, before I talk about Kevin and Jay more in detail, it's well known that Jason Mewes has had issues with substances over the years, and there's been times that he's got clean, then relapsed, etc. Most recently, he's been doing really well, you know, now with a child, etc. And I'm really happy for him. But during this, Kevin said to him, we have got some great cast here. I know we've done some films before, but we have got great cast here. We've got Alan Rickman. We've got consummate professionals. You need to be at their level. Otherwise, I can't put you in the film. And rather than turn around and go, well, sod you, I'm not doing it or anything like that, he turned around and learned the entire script. Not just his parts, the entire script. His reasoning, so he didn't annoy Alan Rickman. This is why I respect Jay. As Jason Mewes, I mean, not the character. I respect him because he's had these troubles, he's had this addiction, but that was hiding a person who has drive, who has commitment, who wants to do things. It's just that he made some choices that didn't work out very well. It's why I have such respect. But whilst, yes, I'm talking about Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith, Jay and Bob are great. The whole View Askew universe is kind of hinged upon them, which is why I made that joke earlier about, are they the lead, really? But they've had to, as much as Kevin said to Jay, you've got to raise your game. It works the same here. Kevin Smith had to perform at that level as well. I know Bob doesn't have to talk as much, so Kevin had to do a lot more facial performances, and there are some great moments in this where he's doing a lot just with eyebrow raises or little nods or, little whatever it might be. These minor little facial acting moments are crucial to Bob's character. Yes, the no ticket bit is fun, but they both really escalated to what they had to do here, and I love it. It's very interesting that a character like Jay can be more progressive, at least in some ways, I mean specifically pro-choice, than some of the US at the moment. It's not a good metric if a character like Jay is better than you. I mean, yes, he does have some questionable comments later about cross-dressing, etc., and his general attitude towards women can be a bit problematic, let's say. But still, he's pro-choice. Maybe not for the right reasons, but he's pro-choice. Just take a second for that. But we get another great performer added when they're on the road in Chris Rock. And he's one of those people that I don't think about often. I don't mean that maliciously at all. It's just, there are some actors who you just go, oh yeah, I suppose they're okay, or comedians or whatever. And he's just one. I enjoy performances, but I don't really think about it too much. But he is so good here as well. And with Black Mirror and me doing that recently, I remembered the whole thing like, oh yeah, I used to put clips of stuff in. And I was looking throughout this entire film for, oh, that's a good clip, that's a good clip, that's a good clip. Most of them are Rufus's, absolutely, because the whole thing about Jesus being black, you can talk everything you want about all the miracles in the Bible, which are absolutely unbelievable. The moment you say Jesus is black, people lose their minds. There's the whole thing about belief structures, the fact that Jesus doesn't want belief, although I think that's more serendipity, isn't it? But the whole idea that it's about having faith into something. It's not about having a church, it's not about having the ritual, it's not about having all of this. And that's something that Bartleby says as well later, church isn't about the ritual, that it should be about faith. It should be about, this is me going, I believe in this and I'm celebrating it. I want to say, yes, I am a Catholic, I'm a Jew, I'm a Hindu, I'm whatever I am. But it's more about, I believe in something greater, I believe in God, capital G or small g, totally up to you. But when it's just become the habit and the ritual, when you're literally just paying lip service, that's not faith, that's just conditioning. Whilst this isn't the place for it, I don't really want to sort of pound on religion too much. My own views shouldn't really come into this too much. This is about Kevin's film, obviously, but I do feel that same idea. I think if you are just using it because it's what everyone else does, or you're looking at a book that was pretty much written as a form of social control, or at least modern versions of it, then you're doing it wrong, in my view. And that, like I said, that is what's backed up in this film. If you are just doing it because of these reasons, you're doing it wrong. If you're doing it because you genuinely believe and you have love in your heart for some higher power, good on you. But that rant over, another great moment is the whole thing of Jesus, virgin birth, all that stuff. Mary was a virgin. At the time of Jesus, this man was married to her for that long and you think he wasn't getting some. I love the humour of that. And the fact that, because a lot of people have done the Merovingian thing, this is very much a riff on that, I feel. The fact that Jesus actually had children with Mary Magdalene and that's the bloodline passed down, so you're part of Christ's line. But I like this idea more. It's not that Jesus had a relationship and everything like that, it's that Mary and Joseph had it. But because whilst it was an immaculate conception, it was a virgin birth, he was still of Mary. There was still, if you want to look at it in one way, there's still genetic components that must have gone into making him. So at least half of all of Jesus' siblings would be genetically similar to the Son of God. I mean, again, with anything religious, you've got to put some hand-waviness because it is kind of a bit magic-y. But it's believable in context, at least, and I appreciate they went that route rather than the standard Merovingian descendant route. But in that same scene as well, we talk about the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, Jesus was told at the age of 12, by the way, you're God and the Son of God, and you've got to kill yourself, or you've got to allow yourself to be killed in the future to wipe out the debt, if you will, of sin of humanity. Anyway, go and enjoy the rest of your life. Why is there a gap in the Bible? Because that's it. There is a gap in the Bible. We have Jesus the child, Jesus the 30-year-old. We have this time window, and that was adjustment. Bethany doesn't have that long, and she shoulders it really well. That's the point of this scene. Jesus had time. You don't have time. We need you in 4 days. Well, less than 4 days by that point. And that does lead then to that scene that I mentioned earlier with Alan Rickman. And I think one of the things I noted about that, as I've been going through my own journey with training to be a therapist, there's the idea of integration of the parts of the self. And it's something that, again, is absolutely sold beautifully by the performances, but the idea of it is so true. I have often thought of myself as, the YouTube persona, the musician, the student. I didn't think of those as elements of a whole me. I put on the performer mask, I put on the student mask. But it's not. It's accessing the parts of myself. I'm still 100% me in that point, at that point in time. I'm just utilising skills from that particular discipline. But on the flip side of that, I've actually learned to use parts of other things. So sometimes in some of my student engagement, I'm putting the performer mode on a bit to kind of seem a bit more outgoing, to be a bit more social. It's taxing, yes, I'm not going to lie, but I'm sort of finding this integrated version of me where I can kind of pull different parts of myself together. And like I say, this is part of what Bethany has to realise. She is the person who couldn't have children. She is the person whose husband left her. She is the person who works at a pro-choice clinic. She is also the last scion. She's also part of Jesus' bloodline in a way. She is Bethany, the whole person Bethany. This is one of those films that I've really enjoyed, although there is one bit that I really didn't like. I'm not a massive fan of toilet humour. It's not something that does anything for me. But the Golgothan bit, it's just one of those moments that I just want to skip forward. I mean, it is voiced by Ethan Suplee, who's also worked with Kevin Smith a lot, but it's one of those where, as much as I don't like that stuff, and I really do not enjoy that scene at all in the bar, it just does not, or the strip club, it does not do anything for me at all. But I can tolerate it because the rest of the film just is so much better. But as the film goes on, yes, we learn about God's love of turning into a human and playing skee-ball, which is such a weird idea, but I love it. And we give Bethany the realisation, because the scene at the start is very confusing, but once it's over, you kind of forget about it in the rest of the film. It's briefly mentioned there's a guy on life support, but we see this guy attacked by the kids, these demons, and we never think about him ever again. But then Bethany goes, hold on, there's a homeless guy, the John Doe in the hospital across the road, and she clicks that maybe he played skee-ball. Maybe that's God, and maybe the reason that he's stuck on life support is because if he dies, she'll be released and she'll be able to sort this out. It's all this clever plan. It's very much Chekhov's gun. There's so much stuff that's set up if you're paying attention and you kind of keep things in the back of your mind. Kevin Smith is sometimes slated as a writer and as a director in certain ways, but when he fires, he fires. And even some of the less good ones, that I've hinted at earlier, some of those still have moments where you're just like, oh, well done. That's so well put together. And so, yeah, we get the release of God, the vision of Alanis Morissette. And again, this is one where casting, I think, worked out really well. Originally, Emma Thompson was going to be God, but she got pregnant and had to pull out. Again, I love Emma Thompson, but I think that was a really good thing to have happened. I cannot see anyone but Alanis as God. Her funness, if you will, just comes through. There's something about her portrayal of God that just makes it work. The fact that she kind of has sympathetic eyes. She's clearly caring. She doesn't want to kill Bartleby, but she's kind of God. He's no longer an angel. He's obviously going to do all sorts, and she's got to right that wrong. She's got to solve that problem. And you can tell it's not something she wants to do. But because God is a wonderful, beneficent, omniscient being, she kind of goes, well, okay, that's done. Now I'm here for these people. I'm here for them. I mean, the whole question that Bethany asks, when it's just like, hey, I guess relative of mine.
Why are we here?
Ignore the fact she makes a sound. I put it in my head as, it's like, this is to her a whisper. That little, that's a whisper. So it's not strong enough to cause any damage, and it's very short-lived. That's what I'm taking it as. If you'd have just gone boop at full volume, that would have been it. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm making it work. But that little boop, that little skip away, all of that to me isn't a non-answer. It is the answer. I interpret this, and you can interpret this obviously any way you want. That's the beauty of it. I interpret it as the point why we're here is to take some joy in the little moments, have fun. Things will be difficult. Things may not work out as you want, but just have fun. When someone's just like in front of you, just boop their nose. I mean, with consent. Obviously, don't just do it randomly to people. If it's someone you know really well, put some joy into the world, because when you look at how she's acting, before they all disappear. She's doing handstands against a tree. She's taking joy in the little moments. This is why she comes to Earth once a month to play skee ball. It's joy in the little moments. She gives the prizes away to homeless children or neighborhood kids. It's the point. This film isn't about religion's terrible, God's awful, doesn't care about us, it's all a lie. This is about, I'm not sure if I'm Catholic, but I still think that if there is something out there, it's having fun. And that's what we should do. If we're made in God's image, we should follow that model. That's why I love Dogma. And it's why I will continue loving Dogma, even with the Golgothan scene. I will continue to love this film, and I'm so glad that it's got its second lease of life. If you're able to, because I don't know if it's just in the States this release, but if you're able to, go and watch it. And if it comes to streaming, if you can't watch it when it's theatrical, watch it. If you enjoy films that make you think, if you enjoy films that make you feel, if you enjoy films in general. So that's my probably far too long gushing about Dogma over. But yeah, I really love this film. Again, I'm not going to get started. So next week we're talking about a game, and like I said, after that should be The Residents, and there's a few things coming in July that I've got to get prepped. But I hope you'll join me for that and everything coming after. But until next time, as always, thank you for watching, take care, and go and boop a friend's nose.
Nudes to the motherfucking news!